Teams have played on Sunday. There are actually 3 Major League games on Sunday, this opening day of the 2016 season. The Pirates are beating the Cardinals in Pittsburgh 4-0, top of the 9th, and Chris Archer, he's all fired up to take the mound to start this season for Tampa Bay, and he's a good one. John Givens Ball Club, they have a terrific offense, and they have the promise of being even better than they were a year ago. Just take a look at their lineup. Top of the order, Kevin Pillar. He won the leadoff spot out of spring training. He's followed by the reigning MVP, Josh Donaldson. He's only the second Blue Jay to win the MVP award. George Bell won in 1987. And down in that 5th spot, how about having Troy Tulowitzki for a full season? He's a 5-time All-Star that owns 2 Gold Gloves and 2 Silver Slugger awards, and he is focused. He's reported to spring training on February 15th, and he has truly been a leader of this ball club.
And you can feel that presence throughout the clubhouse. Troy Tulowitzki, Donaldson, Martin, all leaders in their own way.
Chris Archer makes his first start of the season, 12-13 for the regular season in 34 starts, and Pat, he's as good as it gets.
Blue Jays get one of the best in all of baseball to begin the 2016 season. Chris Archer, as you can see, is coming off a season where he actually lost more than he won, 12-13, but an excellent earned run average of .323, became an All-Star for the first time, while setting a club record in strikeouts with those 252. The Jays know all about Archer. This is his career high 16th start versus Toronto. 5-3 in those 15 starts, averaging just about a strikeout an inning.
Well, Chris Archer, he gets a lot of strikeouts, but he can use some good defense behind him, and he has an excellent defense, especially in the outfield. Desmond Jennings is a former center fielder playing left field. The Gold Glove winner in center is Kevin Kiermaier. Steven Souza Jr. is in right. Longoria is a Gold Glover at third, then Brad Miller and Logan Forsythe team up the middle. Newcomer Logan Morrison's at first base, and behind the plate, a little bit of a surprise, a switch-hitting catcher Hank Conger making his first start for the Rays.
At shortstop, talk about some changes. This is Brad Miller. He's a shortstop that they brought over from Seattle. This is the 6th different opening day shortstop in the last 7 years for the Tampa Bay Rays, and they have some concerns with fielding the baseball. When you've got a great pitching staff like they do, you have to catch it. Miller made 5 errors in spring training.
Most of his errors are throwing related. He has been known to throw it away. Well, that'll be something we'll keep an eye on. Kevin Pillar, we mentioned he's the leadoff hitter in this lineup, coming off a fine first full season. A year ago, he had .278, playing every day in center after starting out in left field. Archer is set, gets the sign from Conger. Here's the first pitch of the season. Up and away for a ball, and we are underway. They want to get that ball taken out and save it for prosperity because of the first pitch of the season. Chris Archer's 27 years old. This is his 4th full season with the Rays. Sharply on the ground. Miller with his first chance and throws low, but scooped over at first by Morrison. 1 down.
They're going to have to play good defense. The Rays have always been known to play good defense. They have a couple of changes on that infield, Miller and Logan Morrison. So we'll keep an eye on that as this series unwinds.
Well, here is the reigning MVP, Josh Donaldson, in his 2nd season with the Blue Jays, and what a year he had in 15. Numbers across the board are impressive, becoming just the 2nd MVP in franchise history.
Boy, what a year he put together last season. You can see the great numbers, but for me, watching him day in and day out is his tenacity when he is out on the field. Offensively, defensively, in that clubhouse, on that bench, he is always talking baseball.
Well, we mentioned that quote from Bautista at the top of the show about players hating to lose. This might be number 1 on that list. What do you think the Blue Jays need to do to be effective against Chris Archer?
We talked about the numbers with Archer versus the Blue Jays, and it seems like whenever he has that sharp slider, one of the best in all of baseball, when he has it against the Blue Jays, he has good game. The last 2 starts he made against the Blue Jays last season, not very good. He was walking the ballpark. He was giving up hits. He was giving up runs. I think he got tired at the end of last year, and his slider and his command with it wasn't very good.
There's that slider, and it was again a good spot. Archer threw 212 innings a year ago. The league hit just 220 against him. And you're right, he may have run out of gas toward the end.
Yeah, 8 2/3 innings, 15 hits against the Blue Jays last year in those last 2 games.
Donaldson spoils a tough pitch. We talked about Donaldson being a terrific 2-strike hitter, and that was a good example of how he protects that plate.
241 with 2 strikes. That's the 9th best in all of baseball last year. And it has to do with the way that he sets up at the plate. Normally he's got the high hands and then the high leg kick, and he'll drop his hands. When he gets the 2 strikes against tough righties, he'll drop those hands to begin with and just shorten everything up. You see it right there. There was not a lot of movement with his hands that we see in the past when it's a 2-0, 3-1 count. He says he doesn't necessarily spread out just a little bit more, but he's trying to let that ball track just a little bit. There are the numbers. 13 home runs with 2 strikes last year.
How about that approach? Base hit for Donaldson on a tough pitch. Down and away. 241 average with 2 strikes a year ago, and he gets a base hit in his first AB of the season.
9th best in all of baseball. It's a tough slider. But concentrate on his feet, how they don't move in his hands. Not a lot of movement in those hands, and he shortens it up. Just trying to make contact because he knows that pitcher is going to try and stay away from him.
Boy, that is a very difficult situation for Archer. You throw him your best pitch and he singles to right. Here's Jose Bautista. Bautista coming off another 40 home run season. He has not fared well against Archer, but not many have.
Yeah, the 2 guys who have not had a lot of success, Bautista and Encarnacion, the most important guys in the Blue Jays lineup. Their numbers against Archer have not been good. They have to minimize that slider. Try to get ahead in the count and get fastballs.
Edwin Encarnacion waits on deck. He has not had an official at bat all spring long. Boy, I tell you what, the thing that we talk about with the Blue Jays is their patience. They are confident that they don't have to swing at borderline pitches.
How many times have you seen guys go up there 2-0, and before the pitcher even throws the pitch, they make up their mind they're going to swing? You don't see that here.
Bautista called for a swing. Home plate umpire is Mike Everett.
3-0 pitch. It looked like he had the green light. This fastball is going to rise up out of the strike zone, but Bautista cannot hold up. The reason they're able to stay off of those pitches is they've got a great plan when they step into that batter's box.
High foul down the left side. That'll reach the seats.
You know, if you have a plan when you stay in that batter's box and you have an idea what that pitcher's going to try and do to you, you can recognize a tough 2-strike slider. And I think the Blue Jays, as a team, do it better than anybody in baseball.
Full count, 1 out. Donaldson's at first base. There he goes. Ball 4. So right out of the chute, Chris Archer is in a jam, and he's got Edwin Encarnacion coming to the plate.
3-2 slider. Early last season, when I thought he was the best pitcher in the American League, he had that slider, and he was throwing it in a good spot. He lost that, I thought, the last 2 months or so of the season.
Another great season for Edwin Encarnacion last year. 277, 39 homers, and 111 RBIs. Pat, you played, had a fine career as a player. It is remarkable how the Blue Jays can be so selective and be such a powerful team.
You know, that's what I mean about going back to having a plan at that plate. They have studied Chris Archer, and they know when he likes to use his fastball, when he'll use his slider to the righties or to the lefties, and they put the game plan together that Brooke Jacoby, Eric Owens, and the players put together for Chris Archer. They have an idea when they step in that batter's box. All they have to do is now just look for the baseball.
Fouled straight back. Edwin has been a slow starter for his career. He hasn't really enjoyed a lot of success in April. Last year, coming out of the chute, 205 in April, but he hit 4 home runs. And then he was a pitcher's nightmare in May.
The weather heats up and his bat heats up. Just 25 at bats last spring.
Ball gets away from Conger, and that's going to move the base runners up. It'll be a wild pitch charge to Chris Archer, and that eliminates that ground ball double play opportunity.
Well, we'll keep an eye on Archer in the breaking ball. That time right off the plate. And Conger, you mentioned a surprise starter at catcher. Kevin Cash wanted him back there because he can hit. That time that ball got away from him. The Blue Jays are able to move up.
There's a base hit that's going to score 2. Bautista got a good read. He's right behind Donaldson. Who needs spring training? A 2-run single for Encarnacion, and the Blue Jays are off and running.
If you're Edwin Encarnacion, I guess you don't need to hit major league pitching to be ready for a big league season. He just took his at-bats down at the minor league level. He was nursing some injuries and just felt like in a comfortable atmosphere that he can get his work in. How about this approach off of another breaking ball from Chris Archer? Big power hitters, you don't see power hitters like that around baseball being able to handle a tough pitch like that.
Troy Tulowitzki takes a first pitch strike away. Tulowitzki for the season hit 280. He joined the Blue Jays at the end of July. Hit a home run in his first game with the Blue Jays.
Troy has been locked in, I think, from the first day of spring training. He's got a little bit higher leg kick this year. The bat's a little bit flat as it starts. He was a little bit more upright last year. He felt like he had to make a few adjustments to get to some of these pitchers.
Boy, had a good rip. You talked to Tulowitzki about making those adjustments. Now you're talking about a 5-time All-Star and a 2-time Silver Slugger, but he's constantly trying to massage his approach.
Big leaguers do that all the time. You see guys who've been in the league 8, 10, 12 years. They might have different stances or different approaches. As you get older, your bat might slow down. You might want to go to a smaller bat. You might have to change things up. But that's the adjustment, the cat and mouse games that batters go through all the time.
Archer's throwing a lot of high fastballs, and he made that transition last year. He used to sink the ball a lot more, but so far that high fastball hasn't been effective for him. It's been up and out of the zone.
He needs to bend over. He's standing upright when he lets go of the baseball.
Tulowitzki had 4 home runs in 15 games during spring training. Two balls and 2 strikes. Let's go back to the Donaldson at bat. Slider down and away, might have been a ball, probably a ball off the dirt just a few inches. How much did that play into this inning where the other hitters got to see what Archer was going to try to do to finish off the at bats?
2 strikes. They're going to try and throw that breaking ball down and away. Encarnacion had a great approach, and Donaldson had a great approach. And now Tulowitzki is doing the same thing. They're really making Archer work.
26 pitches now here in the first inning.
13 balls and 13 strikes.
The Blue Jays are 20-19 on opening day. This is their 40th season. Second walk of the inning issued by Archer, and that's going to bring the pitching coach out from the dugout. He needs to give Archer a break, if nothing more.
Yeah, you let him catch his breath just a little bit. Jim Hickey, one of the best in all of baseball. He's had some talented players to work with. And you can see he's going through a laundry list right now that he wants to talk over with Chris Archer.
Remember, there's a new time frame in the game this year. 30 seconds you have from the time you leave the dugout to deliver your message, and when you have so many topics to discuss, it's difficult to do it 30 seconds.
30 seconds isn't enough. That's where a player's got to step in there and kind of talk to the umpire a little bit and get his mind off of his job of breaking that up. But Jim Hickey had a definite message he wanted to relay to Chris Archer. Probably seeing the same thing you and I are seeing, that he's just standing up. He's not finishing his pitches.
Adrenaline might play into it. First game of the season. This is Chris Colabello now batting with 2 on and 1 out. Surprised Colabello drew the starting nod?
Surprised only because he's right-handed. Justin Smoke is left-handed. Colabello had a great year last year. There are his numbers. And Chris had been struggling a little bit towards the end of spring training. Justin Smoke had been swinging a red-hot bat in Dunedin.
Smoke had a good spring, and we kind of thought that he would get the starting assignment at first base, but that wasn't the case. And we talked to John Gibbons about that this morning. He said, you know, Colabello finished up great for us, had a good run in the postseason, had a terrific season. And I just feel like I want to give him an opportunity. He has a home run against Archer.
And Gibby also said he's had good numbers. He said he's come up with a lot of big hits for us last year.
There's that nasty breaking ball. That's the first strikeout of the game for Archer.
That's why you were thinking about maybe taking away that slider and starting the lefty, because the strikeouts, woof, lots of them. Only Chris Sale in the American League had more strikeouts than Chris Archer. That's a new team record for the Tampa Bay Rays.
4th most strikeouts in baseball. Archer establishing that team record, held by Scott Kazmir. Hard throwing lefty. This is Michael Saunders, and I don't think there's anybody happier to be in this opening day lineup than Michael Saunders.
He was telling us when we were in Montreal that, hey, I'm finally healthy. Last year, played 9 games, and I just never had my legs underneath me because of the knee injury. And you know how difficult it is to try and hit major league pitching without your legs underneath you.
Michael hit a home run in Montreal on Friday night. 2nd inning drive to deep center. He had a good spring. Saunders hit .293 for the spring. 3 homers and 10 ribbies.
Well, if he can time up one of those pitches, either a fastball or the breaking ball, he's got the whole left side of the infield to dribble the ball through that'll score a run. The Rays are going to play an overshift with Michael Saunders, which is really interesting. As hard as Archer throws, you would think that they want to even things out because Saunders can handle the bat. He can go the other way.
2-0 Blue Jays. Michael Saunders behind 1-2. Breaking ball swung on and missed. Saunders strikes out. Archer is through the inning, but it took him 34 pitches. And how about Edwin Encarnacion? We haven't seen him all spring long. He gets his first at bat against a tough Chris Archer and delivers a 2-run single. 2-0 Blue Jays. now time to take a look at the lineup for Kevin Cash's Tampa Bay Rays. Last year they finished 80-82, fourth in the American League East. And look down in the third spot, that's the veteran All-Star Gold Glover Evan Longoria. Against Toronto, he has 19 career home runs and 87 RBIs in 133 games. He also has a home run against today's starter Marcus Stroman. And then down in the eighth spot, a terrific young player, Kevin Kiermaier, had a career-high 18 steals a year ago, and he is one of those guys you got to keep your eye on. It looks like he's about ready to take the next step and become a star.
Improving every year. I think he's ready to take that next step. In charge of stopping him, Marcus Stroman, the third youngest opening day starter in Blue Jays history behind Drew Hutchison and Todd Stottlemyre. He's looking forward to this day. Impressive spring training, an impressive start to his young career. Just 24 years old. Already he's 15-6 in his big league career.
Take a look at the defense behind Marcus Stroman, and it's a good defense, maybe the best defense we've seen since that World Series team in '93. Saunders, Pilar, and Bautista from left to right in the outfield. Donaldson and Tulowitzki man the left side. Goins and Colabello on the right side. Former Gold Glove winner behind the plates, Russell Martin for Marcus Stroman.
I tell you, you talk about good defense. The key, I think, is Troy Tulowitzki. His first game with the Blue Jays was July 29th. Blue Jays had 61 errors at that time. They committed 27 the rest of the season and turned 55 double plays after he arrived.
This is Logan Forsythe. He is the new leadoff man for the Rays. Had a good season a year ago, 17 homers. Pat, this is a trend that we're seeing all around baseball. They're putting good hitters in that one spot. You don't see those prototypical speedsters anymore.
You thought Kevin Kiermaier might be that guy for the Tampa Bay Rays, and when Kevin Cash was asked why Logan Forsythe, he said, I want to get my best hitters up there as many times as possible. That first and second spot in the lineup comes around so many more times. You look at the numbers, it's about 75 more times than the other guys. So he said, I want to get my best hitters up there. And besides, there isn't too many, like you say, prototypical leadoff hitters in baseball anymore.
Strike three call. That's strike at the knees, and Stroman very animated as always, acknowledging that low heater.
Well, that's one of the things that has taken him to the next level, the ability to paint and to keep the ball down. He's got so many ways to get you out. He can sink it. He can throw you a breaking ball. This time, paints right on the outside corner for strike three. What a job by Russell Martin framing that one up.
Russell can really handle that glove behind the plate. Made that strike look better than it might have been. Logan Morrison in his Rays debut played for the Mariners. He takes strike one. The Rays were very conscientious of trying to beef up the offense. Didn't score many runs last year, and they wanted to add the offense to help out the pitching staff. That ball skipped right over the bag. Boy, the Blue Jays caught a break. If that ball hits the bag, no telling where it ends up, but it went right over the bag, and Tulowitzki was positioned perfectly.
5 years ago, that's a base hit. But with all the statistical analysis and defensive changes, that ball is right where Troy Tulowitzki is standing. You're right. The Blue Jays catch a break right over the bag with the concentration level of Tulowitzki to stay right with that one. That's why we highlighted him defensively. He's such a key, and he's such a great player.
Well, I tell you what, you mentioned how the Blue Jays improved with the arrival of Tulowitzki. The pitching staff really became confident. Longoria hits one just inside the bag at first. Bautista will go over in the bullpen and dig it out. Evan Longoria with a double with 2 outs in the first.
Well, we've seen this in the past, haven't we? From Evan Longoria, takes a tough pitch and slices it right over the bag. You can see the defense playing off the line. No defense there. You can't defend that. He's just a good hitter.
So this is Corey Dickerson, another new Rays player they brought in to complement the lineup. He's batting behind Longoria, left-handed hitter that can swing it. 2 outs, Longoria at second base. This is another thing we saw change midseason last year from the Rays. They're much more aggressive early in the at-bats.
They felt like they were taking a lot of first pitch strikes, and pitchers knew that they were very patient at the plate, and they were jumping ahead 0-1. From about the end of July to the end of the season, their approach became more aggressive. And they started averaging about 5.5 runs a game after they started being a little bit more aggressive.
Bouncing ball. Colabello makes a nice play. Stroman is there. He saves a run. Colabello has always told us, hey man, I can play first. And he proves it right there. That ball was headed for right field. Corey Dickerson pulled the bouncing ball. Looked like he was going to get past Colabello, but he leaves his feet. And then he knows Stroman will be there on time at first. Good run-saving play to end the bottom of the first.
Photo or video of you showing your Blue Jays spirit, along with the hashtag WinTBJOpener and tag at Blue Jays to Twitter or Instagram. One lucky fan will receive 2 tickets to the Honda home opener on Friday, April 8th versus Boston. Your prize includes tickets, airfare, and hotel. Full contest rules at BlueJays.com/home opener, and you'll get a chance to see the same man that's on the mound today, and Marcus Stroman.
Marcus Stroman will make his start in the home opener on Friday, April 8th against the Boston Red Sox. Blue Jays lead it 2-0. Russell Martin will start things off in the bottom of the second. Top of the second, he hits one off Morgan's glove. Martin is going to lose the foot race to Chris Archer. Logan Morrison put a glove on it, but then it kicked away. Chris Archer stayed focused and beat Russell Martin to the bag. Blue Jays are going to take a look at that replay just in case.
What a heads-up play by Forsythe. Looked like a shore base hit for Russell Martin off the glove of Logan Morrison. But Logan Forsythe right there throws a strike. That's close, but I think he's out.
Yeah, it looked like Archer put the foot on the bag before Martin got there. Good play by the second baseman. 1 down. Ryan Goins batting 9th. .250 average a year ago. Archer gets ahead with a fastball.
Well, whatever Jim Hickey said to Chris Archer, looks like it is starting to work. He took out the last 2 batters he faced, then got the first one and jumps ahead of Ryan Goins here.
Jim Hickey really knows his pitchers, and he knows what buttons to push, that's for sure. Chris Archer, he doesn't need much prodding. He's pretty self-motivated, but Hickey knows how to flip the switch.
Tell you the kind of season that he had last year, Archer, he had a losing record. He was 12-13 with a very good earned run average. He still finished 5th in the Cy Young voting last season.
That fastball just hasn't had command of that high fastball. He tries to go top of the zone, and he's missed badly with it. That's a good slider. Catches the inside corner. Boy, you can see how late that break starts.
Sweeping it, if you will. He'll throw more sliders to left-handers, curveballs to right-handers. And that time it just swept right on the inside part of the plate. 3rd strikeout in the last 4 batters.
You talk to the hitters and they will tell you that Archer has the best slider in the league. Back to the top of the order. Pilar grounded out to short his first time up.
I'll take it one step further. David Price, who used to pitch for Tampa Bay, says Chris Archer's slider is the best pitch in baseball. The most devastating.
Not the best slider, but the best pitch in baseball. How many times have we talked about good pitchers along the lines of Chris Archer? If you don't get him in the first inning, you might not get him. And that looks like it might be the case today. Archer wasn't zeroed in the first, and the Blue Jays touched him up for a pair.
Start locking in, don't they? Start saying, okay, that's all. That's all you get right here.
That's another argument for putting the top of your lineup, putting your best hitters in the top of the order. Get to that starting pitcher before they can get zeroed in.
And they keep coming around. Here we are in the 2nd inning, and Pilar's got another AB.
That was a different pitch right there. A little cutter, 89 miles an hour. Didn't have that same depth on it as that slider. Another base hit for Pilar to the opposite field. He's thinking about going to second. Kiermaier's throw is late. Boy, another great at bat. The Blue Jays have made up their mind. They're going to take Archer to the other way.
What an approach we have seen from the right-handers. Everybody knows the Blue Jays are a right-handed dominated hitting team. Well, to combat that great slider that he has, let's try and go the other way. Pilar slices this ball down the right field line. Watch how deep this ball gets. Stays on top of it, lines it down the right field line, and Steven Souza comes over and throws a strike to the second baseman. He had 8 outfield assists last year and almost gets Pilar.
Souza did a good job, but he had no chance with Pilar busting it out of the box. 2 outs. Donaldson with a chance to pick up a ribby. Donaldson singled to right his first time up. A terrific 2-strike swing. One hopper right to Miller. That'll do it. Donaldson hit it sharply, but right to the shortstop. The Blue Jays leave a runner in scoring position. They'll go to the bottom of the 2nd. Marcus Stroman and the Blue Jays lead it 2-0.
Stroman Start is brought to you by BioSteel Sports Nutrition, the natural choice for everyday performance. Drink the pink.
Welcome back to Florida. Marcus Stroman is making just his 25th career Major League start, but Pat, he has picked up on what he needs to do to be most effective.
Well, he's always trying to get better. One of the things he got better at is the percentage of pitches that he keeps down in the strike zone. It went up last year from 38% to 50% in 2015. And when you do that, good things are going to happen. His ground ball percentage went up when you keep the ball down, and the batting average went down. It went down from 250 to 208. When you keep the ball down like that, it's tough to get the ball elevated and get the ball out of the ballpark.
Desmond Jennings takes a strike. It's 1-1 to the Rays left fielder. Jennings is healthy. He injured his knee last season, played in just 28 games. He's always been tough on the Blue Jays.
His numbers against the Blue Jays, he's like Mookie Betts. Every time he sees the Blue Jays jersey, he gets those bats start rattling in that bat bag.
Two and one to Jennings. Good pitch. Well, you keep the ball down there. I don't care who you're pitching to. You're going to get a lot of outs.
And why wouldn't you when you've got the type of inner defense that the Blue Jays can throw out there day after day?
Breaking ball, big hop for Tulowitzki. He'll throw on the run on the money. We have the youngest matchup of opening day starters in Rays history. Chris Archer is 27, Marcus Stroman is 24, and they are two of the rising stars in baseball.
One of them is 6'3", one of them is about 5'8". That's the only difference, I think, right there, because if you look at their numbers in their career, their earned run average is about the same, the whip is about the same. Archer a little bit more power, a little bit more, few more strikeouts. Marcus Stroman, very smart, can move the ball around. He can make the ball do interesting things, being able to throw curveballs and cutters and sinkers.
This is Brad Miller. Ball on the strike. Stroman and Archer are good friends, and they have talked a lot over the years. And last year, when Archer made his opening day start against Baltimore, Marcus Stroman was his guest here at Tropicana Field. Stroman at the time was rehabbing from that torn ACL, and Chris Archer invited him to come over and go through the opening day experience with him as a spectator.
He wanted to see, Marcus did, what it felt like on an opening day. Full house, the excitement. He's got a front row seat today.
Yeah, this is the best seat in the house. This is the one he's been dreaming about his whole life. 2-2 pitch to Miller. Lifted in the air. Donaldson says, I got it. Inside the left field foul line, and Miller is retired. 2 down. Marcus Stroman, we mentioned this is just his 25th career start. He came up last September, made 4 starts and won all 4 of those games, beat the Yankees twice, and then pitched great in the postseason. But the jury is still out. He just hasn't put together a full season yet. But you talk about a guy that knows where he wants to finish. He wants to be among the best in the game.
This is the 3rd time in his career that he's facing Tampa Bay. He didn't face him at all last year, those 4 starts that you mentioned. And Tampa in the past has had his number. So you don't think Marcus Stroman knows that? 11 innings pitched, 8 earned runs given up to Tampa Bay. He knows that kind of stuff, and he knows the importance and the excitement of pitching on opening day. Get his ball club off on a good start.
Steven Souza Jr., the right fielder. There's that abbreviated delivery that Stroman has incorporated into his pitching style. What's the importance and significance of that?
It's all about timing. Try to mess up the timing of the hitter. You and I have had a chance to talk to hitters around the batting cage, and we asked them what that does to them. And You watch a guy, you watch tape of him, you watch him in a game, and you see his windup, and you start visualizing that timing and how long that arm swings and that ball gets to home plate. You start changing that, all of a sudden you're changing the thought process of that hitter.
He wanted that breaking ball away and didn't get it there, and Souza gets the base hit. Second hit for the Rays comes with 2 outs.
Prone to strike out, Steven Souza. If you throw him a good breaking ball, that's a good approach. He didn't even move at the plate. His leg didn't move. All it did, the hands just went right to the baseball because he knew he was going to get a breaking ball.
Here is Kevin Kiermaier, the reigning Gold Glove center fielder in the American League. 263 a year ago. He goes after the first pitch. What are your expectations for Kiermaier this season?
You know, you and I had a chance to watch him in spring training. And first of all, he plays the game the right way, and he's very fast. I think the next part of his game that's going to come is his hitting. And last year, second half of the year, he started to put it together. He was talking, one of the reasons why it came together for him, he actually hurt his thumb. And he was taking the less is more approach, where if your hands are hurt like that or your thumb is sore like that, you can't go out there and swing hard. So he just started making contact, starting hitting line drives to left field and to center field, and his batting average was great the last couple months of the season.
Of course, his defense is exceptional. Kiermaier, one of 7 American League outfielders to win a Gold Glove in his first full season. Ball and a strike to Kiermaier. Bouncing ball. Colabello better hustle back to the line, and he does that. Safe, and now he's off the bag. Tag him again. Colabello said, I want you to review that, because he felt like he tagged Kiermaier. First base umpire is Paul Emmel. And Colabello did the right thing. He went to the base path. He didn't go to the bag, but Kiermaier got around him.
He had a couple of different chances to get him. He's in the base path. He swings and whips on him. This is where I thought he got him right there. He's touching the bag, and Kiermaier gets back. Now he's off the bag, and there's another chance to get him right there.
If he would have tagged him while he was sitting on the ground, we wouldn't have to review it.
So he had 3 chances to get him. It's the second one I thought he touched the bag with his glove.
Well, they're going to go to the replay review, and that replay review is powered by Samsung. First of the season. Interesting play at first, and talk about an athletic move. Kevin Kiermaier, I mean, mid-stride just before the bag, he eludes the tackle, or eludes the tag of Colabello. He should have tackled him.
Stops on a dime and takes a left-hand turn. He clearly missed him on the tag, but right there it looked like he tagged the bag before Kiermaier got back.
You could see the glove bend as he made contact with the first base bag. He got there before Kiermaier.
And there's another chance right there as Kiermaier's sitting off the bag. One more time, this close-up should really tell who gets to the bag first. He's on the bag.
That's beautiful. What a great replay that is. Colabello clearly tagged first base before Kiermaier got there. So they've got their decision. Home plate umpire is Mike Everett, and he makes the call, and the right one. So Kiermaier is called out after review. Colabello was right indeed. That ends the inning for the Blue Jays. The Rays get a 2-out single. They strand a base runner. We'll head to the third with the Blue Jays leading 2-0. Reporter Barry Davis.
Thanks a lot, Buck. And spring training did not go very well for Edwin Encarnacion. Early on, he had to have a tooth pulled, missed some time, and before he could get himself back ready to play, all of a sudden the oblique went on him. So he did not play a single game during spring training. He had a few minor league games at the end. I'd asked him, don't you need a little bit of regular season type action before you actually play? He said, listen, I could have 50 at-bats here in spring training and still begin the season 0 for 20. So if I'm healthy, I'm going to play. One other thing we won't be worried about this year with Edwin is distractions. The season has started. No contract talks are going to go on. They did not make any last-ditch efforts, according to Shai Davidi today. So there will be no talk about an Edwin extension at this point. It's going to wait until after the season, and that's good news, knowing that Edwin will not be distracted.
I don't think Edwin would be distracted no matter what the situation is. He can hit. And I think he had a perfect spring training. He didn't go to Montreal. He didn't have a lot of bus trips. He just got himself ready and gets a 2-run single in his first at bat. That's perfect.
Is the game that easy?
For some of them it is, that's for sure. How about this 3-4 combination, middle of your order? Jose Bautista, Edwin Encarnacion. There's none better in baseball. Jose, I tell you what, you talk about somebody that is well prepared for a season. I've not seen him in better shape than he is. And he is tremendously focused.
Talked to Eric Owens, the assistant hitting coach. I said, you guys ready? He goes, everybody's ready. He said, especially Jose. He's been ready for 2 weeks.
The all-new Honda Civic, now available with Turbo. The 2016 North American Car of the Year.
We are at the home field of the Tampa Bay Rays, Tropicana Field. Edwin Encarnacion, 1 for 1 on this young season. Edwin said, I don't think that was a strike, Mr. Umpire. 2-run single to the alley in right center his first time up. Mike Everett said he went around. Edwin not too pleased with that call either. 0-2.
Looked like he was trying to ask the first base umpire, can you check? Because he didn't feel like he went around.
Fouls that one off the catcher, Hank Conger. Last year, the Rays had Rene Rivera. They decided to let him go. They cut him loose right at the end of spring training. Conger played with Houston last year.
Kevin Cash checked with Chris Archer and said, is it okay if I want Conger to start on opening day? As you see the infield right there, big hole on the right side. And Archer said Conger's an excellent catcher. Good pitch framer.
Encarnacion strikes out. That's 4 strikeouts for Archer.
Another slider. We got that quick shot of the infield, and if you've been watching the right-handed batters of the Blue Jays this afternoon, I'm not so sure that that is the defense you want to put out there. All your statistical analysis might say that, but the approach that we're watching this afternoon by the right-handers suggests on that slider they're going to try and punch the ball the other way. Look at the size of that hole that Tulowitzki can shoot for.
How much does that affect a pitcher if you're thinking about throwing pitches down and away and you see that big hole? That's got to make you have some doubt, doesn't it?
Yeah, or if you've seen 3 guys hit balls to right field already, if I'm pitching, I'm saying, hey, move over, okay? Or go to my infield coach and say, look, their approach is obviously different than what we've seen in the past. Let's don't overshift too much. You're going to take my slider away from me.
Troy Tulowitzki walked in his first plate appearance. To me, it seems like Archer's really trying to guide the ball when he's throwing that high fastball. Like he's trying to make the perfect pitch. He doesn't have that same tentative approach with his slider.
Yeah, it's just he's not finishing his pitches, and everything is up, up, up. He needs to get down over that front leg and drive that ball down to the plate.
2 balls and a strike to the Blue Jays shortstop.
Boy, they've really made him work. I mean, that's one way to get Chris Archer out of the game. We mentioned those last 2 games. 2 starts ago against the Blue Jays, 3 2/3 innings, he threw 100 pitches against the Jays.
That last pitch was his 60th pitch of the ball game, and we're just in the 3rd inning with 1 out. Of course, he had that 34-pitch first inning. Blue Jays scored 2 runs on 2 hits and 2 walks. That's 5 strikeouts. 2 down here in the 3rd. Let's check in with Jamie Campbell.
First baseman, Chris Colombo.
Francisco Liriano opening things up for the Pirates, and those 2 teams are determined to go head-to-head once again this season as they did last year. Cardinals, of course, won 100 games a year ago. But today the Pirates have the upper hand. Liriano strikes out 10 in his season debut. Chris Colabello was a strikeout victim in the 1st. Colabello began his season a year ago in AAA. He got sent out really middle of the spring. He got sent out relatively early in spring training, but he didn't hang his head. He went down and had a great start to his season.
Wasn't he the International League Player of the Month for the month of April?
Sure was. And he got called up early in May and became a big part of this ball club.
And here he is on opening day.
His 2nd opening day assignment, 2014, he was the DH for the Minnesota Twins against the Chicago White Sox. Colabello at the end of the spring really kind of struggling at the plate. He appeared to be in between what he wanted to do.
And that front shoulder was opening up just a little bit too quickly. Talking to him, he says, I'm trying not to go around the baseball, meaning that the barrel of the bat goes around the ball and you hook everything. What he'd like to do is ideally keep that front shoulder closed and hit the ball back through the middle.
Strike 3 call. Chris Archer with a bounce back 3rd inning. He walks Bautista to start the inning and strikes out to side. 6 strikeouts for Chris Archer.
Groups are always part of the fun here at Tropicana Field. Take a look at the TVT and the main board as we welcome all the groups in attendance. Today we welcome Tech Data.
From the heart of the continent will showcase the best of Winnipeg. The journey of three-time Stanley Cup winning captain Jonathan Toews from his backyard rink to NHL. Winnipeg's own Chantal Kreviazuk performs live in front of a hometown audience, and the Minnesota Wild will take on the Winnipeg Jets. It's Rogers Hometown Hockey tonight, right after the broadcast. Buck?
Thank you very much, Barry. It should be a great way to wrap things up in Winnipeg. A great hometown hockey night. Marcus Stroman off to a good start in his season debut. Blue Jays have a 2-0 lead. This is Hank Conger. He's the catcher. He's a switch hitter. Began his career with the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. Conger is now 28 years old. He was picked up by the Rays for cash considerations December 3rd last year. Up and just over the glove of Ryan Goins. He was positioned perfectly, but just couldn't come up with that line drive.
Needed a couple of more inches, and he would have come up with it. That's why Hank Conger's in the lineup this afternoon. Kevin Cash says he hits good pitchers from the left side. He's a pull hitter. He likes to get that ball out in front, and you can see Goins get up, and it's just a couple of inches out of his reach. 2 hops to Bautista.
Conger has always been a good hitter in the minors, but it hasn't translated into the major leagues. A career .225 hitter in the bigs. Back to the top of the order. Logan Forsythe goes after the first pitch. Donaldson gets one at second. No time for the return. Throw from Goins. Forsythe going after that first pitch. Donaldson got the lead runner at second.
Now he's giving the business to Goins. Like, what? You couldn't go around the diamond and turn 2 on that one, but it wasn't hit hard enough to turn 2. But you can see him.
Exactly the spirit of this team. What happened? I thought you were going to turn 2. I gave you a great feed. Donaldson now checking with Tulowitzki. They're going to play an abbreviated shift on Logan Morrison. Little chopper up the third base line. Stroman takes his time, makes a good play of it. The Rays continue to be aggressive early in their advance.
There it is right there. Swing early. You might make a lot of outs early, and you might have some 3, 4, 5, 6 pitch innings, but they feel like they can be a little bit more aggressive and keep the pressure and the heat on that starting pitcher. Marcus Stroman did a good thing right there as you watched him field that baseball. He called off the catcher, Russell Martin, and he took his time. You described it perfectly, Buck. He just took his time. He knew he had the time to make the play.
You saw Stroman has been ahead throughout the early portion of this game. 9 of the first 11 hitters he's thrown first pitch strikes to. Evan Longoria hit a first pitch strike for a double. Takes strike 1. Longoria's numbers have been on a constant decline over the last couple of seasons, but Pat, I think there's more to it than just the simple fact that he's getting a little older.
That might be one of the reasons. I think it's because they haven't had a guy hitting behind him to give him much protection. I mean, if he hit in the Blue Jays lineup with the power that they have and the thunder that they have in their lineup, he would get more pitches and then he'd be able to do more damage. They tried to address that in the offseason by picking up Corey Dickerson from the Colorado Rockies.
Well, when Longoria first arrived on the scene here in Tampa, Pena, who had a lot of power. He averaged 27 plus homers in 4 of the first 6 big league seasons. Fouled into the catcher's mitt. But then they changed the makeup of the ball club, and he became the only offensive threat. And if you're an opposing team, why would you give in to Evan Longoria?
You don't need to. Drove in 73 runs last year with those 21 home runs.
Longoria has been a terrific hitter throughout his career, and Pat, he's what players describe as a quiet hitter.
Not a lot of movement, excess movement at that plate. very calm, seems to be under control. I remember reading a thing about him saying, I might look like I'm under control and I might look nice and relaxed at the plate. But just like any other hitter, I've got the butterflies.
He takes care of that inside pitch and hits it well foul.
See the different approach that the Blue Jays are using against Longoria on this at bat. You mentioned the double on the first pitch last time. It was a breaking ball down and away. They've thrown him all fastballs until that last pitch. And Marcus obviously missed his spot. This is where you might want to expand just a little bit.
See if you can get him to chase. A ball and 2 strikes to the Rays third baseman Evan Longoria. Logan Forsythe takes a lead at second. There's another ball pulled down past the Blue Jays bullpen.
Also, we were talking early in the game about Marcus Stroman keeping everything down, getting a lot more ground ball outs. This might be a spot where you elevate a fastball.
Seems to be the point of the discussion. How do you want to finish this at bat, Russell? Boy, I love this ability for these young players to lean on Russell Martin.
Why he's over here. All these young pitchers coming to the Blue Jays. But you elevate that fastball. Everything was down to Longoria, and he's an excellent low ball hitter.
No sign. They've already communicated the pitch. There's that pitch down and away. Drills it to right. Bautista comes up throwing. He will wisely choose not to make a throw. Longoria drives in the first Rays run of the season on a tough pitch down and away.
On top of great talent, he's a smart hitter. I think he knew exactly what they were trying to do to him in that at bat. It's a good pitch from Marcus Stroman. It was down and it was away, but a good hitter just hit a good pitch.
Corey Dickerson, the DH this afternoon. He was retired on a nice play by Chris Colabello to end the first. Colabello left his feet, snared a bouncing ball that was headed to right, and then threw to first to retire Dickerson. Dickerson is a career .299 big league hitter. He can swing it. Hit .304 a year ago for the Rockies. His career high .312 came in 2014.
Had a lot of injuries last year for Colorado. As Laz Diaz says, he went around. He battled injuries all season last year to Dickerson.
He was limited to just 224 at bats because of those injuries. He went to the disabled list 3 different times. Ground ball. Goins boots it. That's going to be an error. A routine ground ball. First game on this dirt infield here at Tropicana Field. And infielders around baseball, they talk about this field, not their favorite infield.
That is rare right there. The ball came up just a little bit for Ryan. He made 8 errors last year, 4 at third base, 3 at shortstop, and then 1 in the outfield. The ball comes up just a little bit, hits him in the heel, and he just can't get that meat hand there to close that ball into the glove. So now Marcus Stroman's got to deal with Jennings.
2 outs. Desmond Jennings swings and misses. Well, we talk about the defense helping out the pitchers throughout the season. Now it's time for Marcus Stroman to pick up Goins. A 2-out error, and the Rays have runners at first and second. Ground ball to Tulowitzki. He'll go to first in time, and the error doesn't hurt. But the Rays are on the board. A great Evan Longoria with an RBI single. It's a 2-1 ball game as we head to the 4th. In the booth with us, the commissioner of baseball, Mr. Rob Manfred. And Rob, it's great to have you here.
Pleasure to be here. Really a pleasure.
Why Tampa Bay today? You had Kansas City and the Mets, and that was a repeat of the World Series.
Well, believe it or not, I actually keep track of where I've been. I was in Toronto a couple times last year. I didn't make it here to Tampa Bay. I talked to their club on the road, and I thought it was important to get here early in the season, and here I am.
You must be pleased with your first season under your belt as the commissioner, and things are really on the upswing here in season 2.
Well, we feel very optimistic about the 2016 season. We had a really competitive year last year. You think about the World Series last year, couldn't have been a greater end to our season, and we're just anxious to get going here in 16.
Can you talk a little bit about labor? I believe we're in the last year of the basic agreement, and where do you see baseball 3-4 years down the road?
Well, labor, I'm optimistic about. We've already had formal openings, one in Florida, one in Arizona. A lot of player participation, which I see as a positive. Players turn out in number. They're interested in the topics. And we got a really aggressive schedule of meetings early in the season. So I'm optimistic that we can be on that same sort of program we've been on the last 3 times around. Work on it during the season when they're playing games and everybody's got something to focus on, and see if you can get it done before the year's out.
Baseball has really grown in the last few years. Can you keep it growing over the next couple of years?
Absolutely. I am convinced that baseball is a growth business. We've had tremendous revenue growth. I think we have a great technology company that gives us unique opportunities to move the game forward in a rapidly changing environment. I think there's opportunity for us internationally. It's a lot of fun places this spring, Cuba, Mexico City, and I think there are places that are dying to have Major League Baseball in their market.
Mr. Commissioner, and that's been a point of conversation around here. Jose Bautista mentioned that. You go to Mexico, you go to Cuba. How about the Dominican Republic? Because so many great players have come from there.
Well, Jose had a comment? I'm surprised, actually. How could that have happened? I'm just wondering. But look, the Dominican is someplace where we need to play. He's got I'm kidding when I say he had a comment. He makes a really good point. We have so many players from the Dominican Republic. Facilities are a bit of a challenge, but I know the Dominican government's focused on addressing that issue, and it's someplace where we certainly would like to play.
And I know we were in Montreal over the weekend, and again, for 2 games they can come out and support it. But what are your long-term prospects for the possibility of baseball returning to Montreal?
Look, I think Montreal was a great baseball town. It was an unfortunate confluence of events in terms of little ownership turmoil, the strike that resulted in things not working there. I think if Montreal can come up with a financing plan that convinces people that they will build a state-of-the-art facility if they get a team, that they can be a viable alternative for a relocation or expansion.
Toronto hosted the All-Star game in 1991, and of course with the great popularity last year in the postseason, you see that Toronto might be a destination for another All-Star game? I'd love to do an All-Star game in Toronto. The interesting thing about All-Star games is they have become a very hot commodity in our industry. It's become such a great event. Everybody wants one. The number of calls I get from clubs about it's really astounding. It's not just one day anymore either. It's almost like the whole week. We were just talking about that. We're going to be in San Diego this year. Great venue for us, and it does really provide us with an opportunity to expand the number of days in the event. I was reading a story the other day about the guy starting for Tampa Bay today, Chris Archer, and he means a lot to you, and you guys keep in contact. Tell us that story about how he reached out to you. Well, we've had a number of really fun. The story I like the best is he actually, because of somebody knowing someone, he found a picture from my law school yearbook and tweeted it, right? So was it flattering? Well, as I said, to the guys in the office, too much hair and too much glasses. That's all I want to say about this. He is a really engaging young man, articulate, inquisitive, community-minded. He is one of just a whole slew of major league players that are great ambassadors for our game. I think one of the assets we don't talk enough about
is our players beyond the playing field. I mean, what they do for us in their communities and how they promote the game with the way that they live their lives, and he's a great example.
And his mound opponent tonight is another great example in Marcus Stroman, and they're past friends. And, you know, this spring, of course, Bryce Harper brought up the point about we need to enhance our personalities of the young player, and baseball, in my mind, has never had more young stars than it has right now.
Look, I've been asked about Bryce's comments a lot. There was one word in those comments I probably cannot ascribe to, but the sentiment of what Bryce said, I agree with. We got a great generation of young players, and just like 30 years ago, the players decided what was acceptable on the field within the contours of the rules, obviously, but what was right, what was wrong, how the game was going to look to the fans, what was acceptable behavior. These guys are going to do the same thing, and you know what? I know they're going to do the right thing. So I all in on his comments.
You know what? It's a younger audience that we're trying to attract to the game, and they're all into the music and the hip hop and the fashions, and that's all Harper's trying to say.
That's exactly right. And the other one that I get asked about all the time was Jose's flip of the bat. Okay, so maybe 25 years ago that wasn't acceptable, but we didn't have cell phones 25 years ago. We didn't have big screen TVs, and there's a lot of
social
things that
media,
are right. There's a lot of things that are different today. And you know what? The fact of the matter is, in terms of people being focused on the game, got a lot of attention for the game at a point in time that something tremendously positive was going on in Toronto.
We are still talking about it, and it happened in October, but if you weren't in the ballpark, you don't understand what led to that bat flip.
Right. And it does need to be seen in context. And look, I don't think we're probably going to get to a situation where the bat flip is the standard behavior for Major League players. I do think that there are moments in the history of a franchise, and that's really what you were talking about there, where if a guy flips a bat, everybody can say, hey, I get that.
Yeah.
That inning alone, that seventh inning was one of the greatest innings I've ever seen in baseball.
Couldn't agree with you more.
Mr. Commissioner, obviously there's a very serious topic that has been raised in its awareness, and that's domestic violence. And I have to applaud baseball for the way it's handled it. Of course, we have the Chapman suspension, and Cespedes has been ruled upon. Now Reyes' case has been dropped, but how is baseball going to handle the resolution of the Jose Reyes situation?
Just for clarity, it was Puig that was not Cespedes, but just to be fair to him.
Absolutely.
Look, what we're going to do with Reyes is what we try to do in all these cases. Once the criminal proceeding is resolved, usually there is more flexibility in terms of making information available to us. We're playing now. We need to get this done as quickly as we possibly can, but we want to know as much about the facts as possible, and then we will go ahead and rule in the Reyes case. I will go ahead and rule. It is an area that is of great concern to us. We have an asset. Joe Torre was an advocate on this issue years and years before he ever joined the commissioner's office, and we have benefited from his expertise in this area.
And Josh Donaldson, of course, has dealt with it himself. He grew up in an atmosphere of domestic violence. But we certainly want to thank you for your time, Mr. Commissioner. It's great of you to be here on opening day, a special time, and we wish you nothing but the best.
Well, it's great to see both of you, and thanks for having me on.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner.
All the best.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks. Well, the Blue Jays, while we were visiting with the commissioner, have put up another run. It's a 3-1 game. Kevin Pillar with a single to right has picked up the RBI. Josh Donaldson bats with Goins at second and Pillar at first. Off-speed pitch popped over the screen and out of play.
I can't say enough about the approach at the plate by some of these Blue Jay hitters against one of the best pitchers in all of baseball.
That we have talked about it all spring long, and the players themselves have said, you know what, we've got unfinished business. But this has been a very serious camp, but it has also been an upbeat fun camp. I mean, they've been having a lot of fun, but they are focused on doing some special things. 2-2 pitch to Donaldson. Strike 3 called, and he knew it. Archer with another strikeout.
That's a cross-up right there. It looked like Josh. Remember, he singled in the first inning on a 2-strike breaking ball down and away, and it looked like he was looking for the same thing, and Chris Archer crossed him up, threw a fastball. You can see how disgusted Josh is that Archer got the best of him on that at-bat.
Now here's where Jose Bautista can deliver with 2 outs. A run in here in the 4th. It's a high strike with a breaking ball. Archer's now thrown 85 pitches to this point, and that number really took a beating in the first inning. It took him 34 pitches to get out of the first.
Yeah. Kevin Cash was talking in spring training because of the injuries that they have had in their bullpen, and they traded Jake McGee, a staple down in that bullpen. He's going to let his starters go a little bit longer. He would like that. What the Blue Jays have done to Chris Archer this afternoon and elevate that pitch count. He's not going to be around much longer.
Bautista went too far. 1-2 to the Blue Jays right fielder. Enny Romero, the left-hander, starts to loosen up. The Rays have 3 left-handed relievers in their bullpen. 8 in total. This is where spring training, in my mind, has a disservice to starting pitchers. Here he is making his first start of the season. He's still got good stuff, but he's thrown 88 pitches. He didn't approach that in spring training. They like to get over 100 once. But in years past, pitchers would pitch deep into spring training games 2, maybe 3 times before they left spring training.
Yeah, he got up there 1 time this spring. And then they back him off. It's been a while since he has thrown competitively in a game.
He pitched his last outing in an inter-squad game on March 29th. Strike 3 call. Bautista was on his way to first. Mike Everett rings him up, but the Blue Jays tack on a run here in their half of the 4th. Chris Archer with another strikeout. Kevin Pillar with an RBI.
April 9th, following the Blue Jays Red Sox game, for a compelling first-person account exploring the friendships, rivalries, family, and personal moments that have helped shape Marcus Stroman. Guys, I spoke to Marcus during spring training. He says he looks back now at what happened to him as a blessing. He said he is physically and mentally stronger than he has ever been in his life. And he also got to go back, graduate from school, and he's looking forward to possibly going to Duke to get his diploma. But that happens in May, so depending on what the schedule is, guys, I think it's going to be a little hard for him to get away, but he would sure love that chance.
Well, Barry, I think it's really interesting, and it gives you look inside of Marcus Stroman. That's the personality he has, Pat. He's upbeat. He's always looking for the good in everything. And he looks back and says that injury last March was a blessing in disguise.
Pretty motivated guy to get to where he is and what he has done in this short time in his career.
But how aware Marcus Stroman said, you know, the injury, I had to go back and train. I really had to understand my body, and I have a new appreciation for nutrition and conditioning and working out and how my body works. What a different camp it was for the entire team this spring. The way they went about business physically, training. Bouncing ball. Goins gets a chest high bounce. One down.
Home Hardware and Building Center locations. Proud partners of the Toronto Blue Jays. Homeowners helping homeowners with expert advice.
Beautiful Sunday afternoon here in St. Petersburg. We're just a few blocks away from Tampa Bay. Marcus Stroman pitching with one out in the bottom of the fourth. Steven Souza Jr. had a base hit his first time up. Pat, we had a chance to visit with Pedro Martinez Friday night in Montreal, and he mentioned having crossed paths with Marcus Stroman a couple of years ago in AA.
Saw him down in the minor leagues, like you said, in AA when the Blue Jays team was playing
Portland,
the Red Sox team. And he saw Stroman and he said, that looks like me. He says he's a little bit shorter, he's a little bit stronger, but everything about him reminded him of himself. And then he saw him 2 years later and said, wow, he got to the big leagues so quickly. He gave him some pointers, you know, that kind of thing, talked to him, and is very impressed with Marcus Stroman.
Pedro said, you know what, I'm a little bit taller than Marcus, but he's much stronger than I was. And Pedro was very, very slender. And Marcus really was appreciative of those kind words from a Hall of Famer, Pedro Martinez. But Pedro said, you know, after I saw him pitch, we had a chance to interact. And I mentioned that he was flying open a little bit and he'd lost the depth on his slider. And, you know, you've talked to Marcus a lot. You understand how perceptive he is and how receptive he is to information.
Yeah, he's not going to put his hand up to Pedro Martinez and say thanks a lot, but no thanks.
This ball is hit hard, but off of Bautista's glove. He may have lost it in the lights. Kiermaier is headed for third and stops quickly. At second base, Kiermaier hit a line drive. It looked like Bautista got to it and then may have lost it in the lights above the Blue Jays dugout.
And we'll see how they score this one, but you're right, a sure-handed Jose Bautista in all aspects of his ball game. He got back in time, and then it seemed like the ball took off on him again, and he lost it. Jose's going to be charged with his first error of the season. And against Kevin Kiermaier, you can't take anything for granted. He was thinking about three bases that whole time, just off the end of his glove.
Yeah, it looked like that ball kind of tailed away from Bautista. In fact, maybe he didn't lose it in the lights. It just moved right at the end. Kiermaier ends up at second on the air. Second error committed by the Blue Jays. Hank Conger had a single to right his first time up.
To finish that thought about Pedro Martinez, what did he say to us as he was leaving the booth the other night about Marcus Stroman?
He said, Marcus is going to be better than I am. Now, I don't know about that. That's quite an accomplishment. Pedro, of course, is a Hall of Fame pitcher. Marcus just starting out, but it certainly is impressive to hear Martinez's thoughts about Marcus Stroman.
He sees what everybody else sees. He's pretty good.
Took a little off that pitch and missed the outside corner. 2 balls and his strike.
Starting to use that two-seam sinker just a little bit more. He has the ability to cut the ball underneath the hands of those left-handers. I think he wants to end the inning right here. You got the number 9 hitter up. You should be out of the inning. You don't want to turn that lineup over.
Well, in 2, though, you don't want to give in to Conger. You got a right-handed hitter coming up next in Forsythe. Bautista Had that ball go off his glove for an error. Came with 2 outs. Stroman did a good thing. Kiermaier was jockeying off the bag at second base, and Stroman just held on to it. Said, you know what, I'm not comfortable right now. There goes Kiermaier. Martin's throw is a good one. Oh, what a mistake by Kevin Kiermaier. It was ball 4 to Conger, but Russell Martin delivered a strike. Kiermaier, with a base running mistake, runs into the final out of the inning. He gets a good jump, but it's a strike and a quick tag by Donaldson to end the inning. Blue Jays have a 3-1 lead. Now time for a Blue Jays Central update from the Samsung Broadcast Studio. Here's Jamie Campbell and Greg Song.
On the road, but they are home for a large chunk of April, beginning with the home opening series April 8th through 10th against the Boston Red Sox, and a chance to see David Price make his return to Rogers Center. Also visits from the Yankees the 12th to the 14th. The Oakland A's come to town from the 22nd to the 24th, and then the Chicago White Sox near the end of April between the 25th and 27th. Lots of action at New Rogers Center. I say that because of the dirt infield. Go to BlueJays.com for tickets. Look forward to seeing that turf.
That dirt infield is finished, and Blue Jays will get a chance to test it out on Friday before their opener against the Boston Red Sox. Kevin Kiermaier, boy, he ran into a tough out right there. It was ball 4 to Hank Conger. You're going to turn the lineup over. First and second, 2 outs. Have Stroman on the hooks, but they let him off.
You're already in scoring position, right?
Yeah, that's not a good decision right there.
And it's not like he has to get to third base to score on a base hit. He's got so much speed. Any kind of single, I think, other than an infield.
Yeah, especially in this situation, and you're down by 2. You're not down by 1. Edwin Encarnacion, 1 for 2 with a strikeout. Picked up a 2-run single in his first at bat of the season. Out of play behind home plate. Rays bullpen up for a second time. That is Enny Romero, the big left-hander. Of course, the Rays don't have their closer from a year ago. Brad Boxberger started out the season on the disabled list. He had surgery to repair a core muscle injury.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to miss 6 weeks, so he's been down for about 2. Something's wrong, I think, with Chris Archer.
That last pitch, he looked like he was favoring his shoulder maybe, and now Hank Conger is out, and the Rays.
Yeah, 2 pitches ago, the pitch to Encarnacion, it looked like he was looking at his hand or trying to flex it, and then that pitch that was fouled off looked like something was wrong with his arm. Here's what I was talking about. This is 2 pitches ago to Edwin. Watch the reaction after the ball's fouled off. See him kind of move it around, and then he takes a look at it.
Almost like he's got a cramp in his hand. Fatigue. You know, he's thrown 95 pitches the first start, and sometimes your hand will just cramp up. No problem with that pitch, and he's looking back into the dugout. He's not right.
Yeah.
And I don't know that there's any reason to take a chance with him. He's not going to call the trainer out, but there's something going on with him right now, and any pitcher's too valuable to take a risk if he's pitching injured.
Well, you just watch the reactions. This is a fastball on the outside corner for strike 3. Watch him look into the dugout and then look down at his hand.
That's really curious. Kevin Cash is the manager. He's not in that picture. That is Derek Schultz, the Jim Hickey, the pitching coach, and Tom Foley. Archer is a warrior. There's no question about that. And he must be fairly confident whatever he's dealing with isn't that significant.
He's got 10 strikeouts.
That was his 99th pitch of the ball game. His season high a year ago, 122. He was over 100 pitches consistently all season long last year. Troy Tulowitzki has walked and struck out.
Chris Archer upset with himself after that last pitch. We told you at the beginning of this broadcast that we feel like the key for Archer to have success is get that breaking ball over for strikes. Well, he hasn't really had the command with his fastball like we have seen in the past. And the slider, he's got the 10 strikeouts, 6 of them looking. So the slider's good, but it's not consistent.
Another strikeout, make it 11 for Chris Archer. That is the most strikeouts for a Rays pitcher on opening day.
Number 15, Chris Collins.
Last time the Blue Jays made an out other than a strikeout, you have to go all the way back to the 2nd inning when Donaldson grounded out. This is a high heater. Look at that thing rising. Tulo comes up empty.
.96 strikeouts in 95 2/3 innings for his career against the Blue Jays. 11 this afternoon, but he's on the wrong side of a 3-1 ball game. Chris Colabello has gone down twice, once looking, once swinging.
You don't need any defense, do you, when he's out on the mound the way he's pumping it in there now?
He is really settled in after a rocky first inning. Blue Jays got an extra run in the 4th on a Pilar 1-out single.
Well, that's what you can expect, I think, all season long from these Rays starters. It's a good group.
Nothing wrong with his hand. 94 down and away. Archer had a 15 strikeout game last June against the Angels out in Anaheim. He punched out 15 Angels in 8 innings in a 6-1 win.
Slider is one of the best. Not 90 miles an hour, that slider.
Twelve strikeouts, second time in the ball game, third time in the ball game that he has struck out the side each of the last 3 innings.
Pacific on the WWE Network on this night. WWE superstars become legends and legends become immortal. Yes, it is WrestleMania live from AT&T Stadium in Texas. WWE Network. Visit WWE.com/Canada for more details. Buck?
Thank you very much, Barry Davis. Opening day here in St. Petersburg, and it's a packed house. Chris Archer appears to be done for the afternoon. He records 12 strikeouts and gets the handshake from the manager, Kevin Cash. That indicates his day has come to an end. 12 strikeouts, the second most strikeouts the Blue Jays have suffered during opening day in their franchise history. Tulowitzki, a 360, what a play. Troy Tulowitzki, it's like he's got eyes in the back of his head. He knows exactly where that first base bag is.
You and I had a chance to watch Cal Ripken for years, and Tulowitzki reminds me of Ripken, a big guy, but he always seems to be in the right place at the right time. Balls that look like they're heading out into center field. There's Tulowitzki with those long arms, that reach. Looks it right into his glove and spins and fires the ball over to first base.
This ball is driven to the gap in left center. Kevin Pillar ranges over and makes a nice play of it. 2 down quickly here in the bottom of the 5th.
The all-new Honda Civic, now available with Turbo, the 2016 North American Car of the Year.
Marcus Stroman now is getting a visit. I don't know what's going on here with Stroman. Oh, Morrison may have said something to Stroman, and now they're still getting on each other from the dugout. The umpires intercede here as Stroman and Morrison evidently had some words to say. He's only thrown 2 pitches this inning. It's difficult to imagine much can go on.
Especially an easy fly ball into center field.
Logan Morrison obviously upset. Not sure if something was said on the field, but he was directing his words towards Marcus Stroman.
Well, let's see what happens as that ball is hit into the air.
Marcus is very animated, and he was saying something. I don't know if it was loud enough for Morrison to hear.
I guess he could read lips. I don't know what he said or if he directed it to Logan Morrison, but Morrison took offense to it.
Fly ball. Pilar there. How about a 4-pitch inning for Marcus Stroman? He walks off the mound here at Tropicana Field. Could be a long season between these two teams. Another AL East rivalry. Tampa Bay and the Blue Jays.
81 Blue Jays home games in 4K with captivating detail and 4 times the resolution of HD. Every play comes to life. Sportsnet brings you 4K TV. Guys, I don't know if you've seen this yet, but wow, does it look fantastic.
Perfect opportunity to really get up close with these slow motion replays. We had one earlier in the game that really came across very clearly. Chris Archer's out of the ball game. It goes 5 innings, and he leaves trailing 3-1. Eddie Romero made 23 appearances for the Rays last year. Romero is 25 years old. He comes from the Dominican Republic.
He is the youngest player on the opening day roster for the Tampa Bay Rays. This is his first career opening day roster. His best pitch is a sinking fastball against lefties. He's going to just try and work that fastball in and get them to just pound it into the ground.
Michael Saunders shows bunt and pulls the bat back. Saunders reached on an error in the 4th inning. Blue Jays have 3 runs on 5 hits. Tampa Bay 1 run on 4 hits. Pulled on the ground. Forsythe has it. 1 down.
That's what Eddie Romero does right there. He's got a lively arm. Good fastball, low 90s, but he's got good movement. He's going to use his fastball. Keep it down and just trust that those hitters are going to hit it into the dirt.
Mentioned that Romero got to the big leagues last year, and he had some time in 2013. He came up and made 1 start in 2013. 4 2/3, allowed just 1 hit.
And his reward?
See ya.
See you later.
Got a return ticket to the minor leagues. Russell Martin. He was robbed of a base hit his first time up. Good play by Logan Forsythe. Well, this is what you get when you face the Tampa Bay Rays. Tough pitching, and it's going to be that way all season long.
Yeah, it's not just the starters. That it might have the best group of starters in Major League Baseball. Bullpen's got some good arms. There's some question marks with the injury to Boxberger and the trade of Jake McGee, so there's some question marks in that bullpen.
Last year they had real problems because they had a projected rotation, and the pitchers in that rotation made just 86 starts over the course of the season, so injuries really hurt them last year.
Something that we haven't said about the Rays. I think in the last 5 or 6 years, it always seems like they take care of their pitchers, look out for them, build them up, and last year it was just a freak thing with this organization.
Alex Cobb there on the right of your screen has started his rehab coming back from Tommy John surgery, and in talking with Jim Hickey, they expect Cobb to come back in August. They're going to be very conservative with him. He's a terrific young pitcher. They want him to be healthy, and Jim Hickey says if we can keep our head above water until second half of the season, we could be tough.
Chase Whitley, Johnny Ventures, Alex Cobb, pitchers that they're expecting to come back.
Russell Martin drills at the left field, but Desmond Jennings is there. Russell hitting in some tough luck. Boy, he squared up that fastball.
You can't guide it. It'll all even out, I guess, over the course of the season, but he's hit the ball hard twice this afternoon. Doesn't have anything to show for it. You mentioned the ball to the first baseman that was turned into an out. This ball scalded the left field and took off on Desmond Jennings.
Martin hit a line drive off the glove of Logan Morrison his first time up, and Logan Forsythe came over and made a good play to throw him out at first. Goins is 1 for 2. Marcus Stroman, through 5 innings, has held the Rays to a run on 4 hits. Romero strikes out Goins. A clean inning for Enny Romero. He retires the bottom third of the order. 1, 2, 3. Go to the bottom of the 6th. 3-1 Jays.
Hosting 14 Honda Super Camps across Canada. Learn techniques from former Blue Jays such as Roberto Alomar, Devon White, Lloyd Mosby, Jesse Barfield, and Dwayne Ward. Register now at bluejays.com/camps. Buck?
Thank you very much, Barry. Obviously, Super Camp's a very popular camp. Chance to see some former Blue Jays up close. Marcus Stroman, a good start in his season debut.
Keeping the ball down. He's given up 4 hits. The defense has hurt him a little bit today. They've made a couple of errors behind him, so he's jumped that pitch count up to 62. But I think this is what you're going to see from Stroman. Not the high strikeout games, because that piles up the pitch count, but you're going to see efficiency. Get the ball on the ground. Right now he's using his sinker very effectively, and he's cutting the ball a little bit better.
At the end of the bottom of the 5th, Stroman walked off the mound and was looking back over toward the Rays dugout, and obviously some words have been exchanged, and we have no idea what in the world's going on down there.
He was mad when he went up into the clubhouse after the last half inning. He was upset.
Gets inside on Corey Dickerson. 4, 5, and 6 for the Rays here in the bottom of the 6th inning. Marcus Stroman making his first opening day start. He was scheduled to make that start a year ago, and then tore his ACL in spring training during a fielding drill. And everybody expected he was lost for the season. Everybody, that is, except Marcus Stroman.
Well, if you don't know Marcus, you would say he's done for the year, but he made it a point. I remember right after he got hurt, he says, I'm going to pitch this year. You watch. And he went down and he worked hard and went to school, finished that off, graduated, got the leg strong, and he was as good as new.
Well, there's that abbreviated delivery again, and he backed it up with a changeup for the strikeout.
Boy, what a great sequence he threw to Corey Dickerson. He threw him a sinker for strike 1, and a cutter on the inside part of the plate for strike 2. And then watch this. Hurries up the windup and then floats a changeup in there, totally messing up with the timing of Dickerson as he waves at it.
Bouncing ball. Tulowitzki coming in from short makes the play to throw out Desmond Jennings.
Home Hardware and Building Center locations. Proud partners of the Toronto Blue Jays. Homeowners helping homeowners with expert advice.
Nice play by Tulowitzki to throw out the speedy Desmond Jennings. Stroman threw 4 pitches to retire the side in the 5th. Tampa Bay made a conscious effort to be more aggressive, and those 4-pitch innings can help out a starting pitcher.
Yeah, they can, especially if the other team is making a couple of errors like the Blue Jays have had this afternoon. Now, they've kept Marcus Stroman out there. You're going to have to live or die with that, I guess. If you make an effort to be a little bit more aggressive, at times there's going to be quick innings.
Boy, Stroman looks good, doesn't he? Pitching with a lot of confidence. You can see it in his body.
What I like is the ground ball efficiency. Talked about that at the beginning, that he's keeping the ball down just a little bit more this year. There's another one, borderline right down at the knees, and he's getting a lot of ground ball outs. Desmond Jennings, who just wears out the Blue Jays, has grounded out the shortstop 3 times. That's that good sinking fastball. They just can't square it up.
Chopped over the mound. Goins backhands in time. Ryan Goins makes a nice play. Good defense behind Marcus Stroman. Great composure to bounce back after that 5th inning when he got a little rattled. No problem in the 6th. It'll be top of the order. Kevin Pillar's gone 2 for 3 so far. Donaldson has a hit and scored a run. Bautista has walked twice and he has scored.
In the U.S., you can share all your experiences as they happen with friends and family back home. With Roam Like Home from Rogers, you can use your phone exactly as you do at home, starting at $5 a day in the U.S. Go to Rogers.com/RoamLikeHome for details. You look at the amount of Blue Jays fans here at Tropicana Field, Buck. I imagine a lot of them are taking advantage of the Roam Like Home feature.
A lot of these folks have come down for this series, and I met some folks today from Vancouver, and they flew in for this series. Wow. That's a long trip for a 4-game series, but they love their Blue Jays, and they made it all the way in from Vancouver. This is a new pitcher. Big right-hander is Ryan Webb. He is 6'6" and becomes the first player born in Clearwater to pitch for the Rays.
We just saw Enny Romero from the left side use his fastball and get a lot of sinkers. Well, this is the right-handed version of Enny Romero, if you will. Webb throws hard, mid-90s fastball, and he loves that two-seamer. He'll get his share of ground ball outs with it.
He grew up here in Clearwater, went to Clearwater Central Catholic High School, and was drafted by the Oakland A's. He's not a kid. He's 30 years old. His father is very prominent in this area, Hank Webb. He does a great job for the Clearwater for Youth nonprofit organization for youth athletics in the Clearwater area.
He played a little baseball himself, his father.
Hank Webb was part of the Mets team and pitched with the likes of Tom Seaver, Jerry Koosman, and John Matlack in '75 for the Mets. Kevin Pillar behind 1-2. Kevin, a good start to his season. He's 2 for 3 so far with an RBI. Pat, this team, the Rays, in my mind, does the best job in baseball of finding relief pitchers.
Think about all the relievers over the last 5 or 6 years that have looked like they were washed up, and they came to Tampa Bay, revitalized their careers, and made some money.
This is popped up. Logan Morrison has a play in foul ground and makes the catch. Pillar's retired.
You know, unfortunately for Tampa Bay, they just have not been able to keep them here because they have such great years, and by the time they're ready to cash in, they're going to be pitching for other organizations.
When Fernando Rodney came here, he was on the scrap heap, and they revitalized his career. He became one of the premier closers in the game and turned that into a lot of money. Same for Rafael Soriano.
Joaquin Benoit was another one who did the same thing. And I think a lot of the credit has to go to Jim Hickey, and he'll come in here and get those guys, like you say, off the scrap heap and change some mechanics, work on a few things, and then they would put them in situations to get the big numbers.
Josh Donaldson got everything started for the Blue Jays with a 1-out single in the first. He came in to score on a 2-run single by Edwin Encarnacion. Donaldson didn't like that call. Mike Everett rings him up. Bautista quickly out to make sure Donaldson stays in the ball game, and Donaldson said, "I'm all right, man, but thanks."
Yeah, just in case from pitch tracker, it looked like it was a strike. Webb's got that big sinker. He's going to use it at the bottom of the strike zone, and you can see from that side view it crossed right at the knees. And Jose didn't waste any time, did he?
No, and you can see Donaldson said, "I got it, man. I'm all right. I'm not going to lose my cool here." But Bautista made sure that he didn't get tossed. Blue Jays have struck out 14 times this afternoon. Jose, 2 more walks today, continuing the trend he has developed over the years. He's got a great eye at the plate.
Well, he understands what pitchers are trying to do to him. And if they're not going to pitch to him, he'll gladly take his walk and let Encarnacion take a whack at it.
That changeup is inside. Ryan Webb is pitching in his 6th consecutive opening day. He has been able to make opening day clubs. You go back to 2011 through 2013, he made the rosters of the Marlins to start the season. In 14 and 15, he was with Baltimore to start the season. Hit on the ground. Miller is there. Bautista's retired. 2 relievers come into the ball game, retire the 6 batters they face. Romero 3 up, 3 down in the 6th. Webb 3 up, 3 down in the 7th. Marcus Stroman set to go out for the bottom of the 7th.
April 24th, it's the Blue Jays and the Oakland A's at 1:07, and it is Josh Donaldson MVP Bobblehead Day presented by Pizza Nova. First 20,000 fans receive a Josh Donaldson MVP bobblehead. Go to BlueJays.com for tickets, and if you get your ticket, get there early. Buck?
This copyrighted telecast is presented by authority of Rogers Blue Jays Baseball Partnership and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form. And the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of Rogers Blue Jays Baseball Partnership. It is opening day here in St. Petersburg. Lots of Canadian fans on hand to root for the Blue Jays and Marcus Stroman. And Marcus Stroman has not disappointed the Blue Jay fans.
He's using that two-seam sinker right now, getting 10 ground ball outs so far through 6 innings. There are his numbers, just 3 strikeouts, and he's done it with just 74 pitches. Blue Jays have committed a couple of errors behind him, but that hasn't been a problem for Marcus as he has pitched out of trouble. He is retired now 6 in a row. Seems to be getting stronger as this game reaches its last couple of innings. Throwing up some zeros, that's the important thing.
Well, what he has done is he's really been economical and throwing a lot of strikes. He got Brad Miller to end the 6th, another very efficient inning. He's retired 6 straight. 3 up, 3 down in the 5th, 3 up, 3 down in the 6th, and now he's working to the bottom third of the order. This is where you really got to take care of business. Get through this bottom third quickly. It'll be Souza, Kiermaier, and Hank Conger, the catcher. How about one pitch? Tulowitzki on the run, 1 out.
Did you see the movement on that two-seam fastball? Souza saw the ball out in front, and then he tried to pull his hands in, and he just couldn't extend through it. The thing just ate him up. Watch where the ball is. Right in on his hands.
1 out in the bottom of the 7th. Brett Cecil starts to loosen up. You see Roberto Osuna in the background. He is the closer to start the season. Blue Jays got a terrific back end of the bullpen. Strike 1 to Kiermaier. You mentioned Stroman getting stronger here in the later stages of his outing. Lazy fly ball to center. 3 pitches, 2 outs.
Blue Jays on Sportsnet. Presented by the all-new Honda Civic. Now available with Turbo. The 2016 North American Car of the Year.
Marcus Stroman looks like he's enjoying a nice day at the beach here at Tropicana Field. He has retired 8 straight first pitch strike to Conger. My point about him getting stronger, he's probably tiring a little bit, but the movement on his sinker has become dramatic. And there's another moving pitch.
And that's the one right there, too. That's really, since the first couple of innings, I think has gotten stronger as this game has gone along. That sinker down and away to lefties, then he can run that cutter slash slider right underneath their hands. And as a hitter, you don't know what to look for right now. He's not running into any patterns.
Oh, 0-2. That one got away from him. Marcus Stroman goes through all different types of checkpoints. You can see him talking to himself. Stay back, stay balanced, stay over the rubber. He's got a lot of different checkpoints during the delivery. Ryan Goins is out in right field, makes an easy play of it. 3 up, 3 down. The Rays go quietly in the 7th. It takes Stroman just 6 pitches. Honda Civic, the 2016 North American Car of the Year.
Edwin Encarnacion doesn't waste any time getting into the act in the first inning with a couple of runners on board. He's going to take that slider from Chris Archer and dump it into right field. Didn't appear in many games in spring training, just some minor league games, but that doesn't matter for Double E as he singles in his first at bat, and that's our drive of the game.
Edwin, a year ago, drove in 111 runs. And we mentioned, and Barry Davis, our sideline reporter, talked about it, how he had a disappointing spring. I think he had a great spring. Didn't have to go on any road trips, didn't go to Montreal, and gets a 2-run single in his first at bat.
No bus trips?
That's experience right there, folks. He can hit. He can absolutely hit. And the Blue Jays have a terrific lineup. It might be the most dangerous lineup in all of baseball.
We got to play a couple of games in Montreal and game situations in a big ballpark like this, but there was one thing missing. This guy right here in the middle of the Blue Jays lineup just didn't seem the same, did it?
He has an impact on this entire lineup and how they are pitched. There's another hit for Encarnacion. A 2-hit day. Leadoff single here in the 8th. That's the first hit the Blue Jays have had since the 4th.
Well, he can hit a breaking ball, and he can also hit a high fastball. Ball down and away, and it's up. Look how he stays on top of that baseball. Doesn't get underneath it. Drives right through it.
A normal hitter would panic having just 19 minor league at-bats to start the season, but Edwin Encarnacion's not a normal hitter. He's a terrific hitter. He has a 2-hit game in game 1 of the season. Troy Tulowitzki has walked and struck out twice. The Blue Jays have struck out 14 times here on opening day, but they have the 3-1 lead.
I don't want to say that that was expected, as there's some action now in the bullpen. That's Dana Eveland, the former Blue Jay, warming up for Tampa Bay. I don't want to say that that was expected, the strikeouts, but you kind of had a feeling that might happen with Archer on the mound. One of the best.
Archer, he struck out 12. The 12 strikeouts recorded by an opposing pitcher against the Blue Jays, the second highest opening day total in their franchise history. Randy Johnson struck out 14 opening day of 1993.
Blue Jays went on to win the World Series that year.
Yes, they did.
All right, maybe there's some similarities.
Tulo stays alive, fouls it back. We're in the 8th inning. Tampa Bay won the season series against Toronto a year ago, 10-9. There's a drive to left field. Desmond Jennings back. Get up, ball, and gone. Home run number 1 for Troy Tulowitzki.
Told you that he has been having a good spring. The ball has been jumping off of his bat, and he starts off 2016 on a good note. Ryan Webb doesn't give up a lot of home runs because he's got that great sinker, but the ball has been elevated this inning. His second inning of work, you saw the home run by Encarnacion. Now watch where this pitch is. It's up, and Tulowitzki drives right through that ball.
That's just the 20th home run allowed by Ryan Webb in 358 games. He is tough to get elevated, but Tulowitzki takes him deep, a 2-run shot. Chris Colabello takes strike 1.
That's got to feel good on opening day. Pitch stays in the middle inner half for Tulo, and he's been doing that. 4 home runs in the spring.
Colabello hits it hard right to the shortstop. The Blue Jay fans haven't seen a real Troy Tulowitzki just yet. You got to glimpse some of him in the postseason. He had 11 RBIs in the postseason, but I think you're set to watch a very good player have an excellent season. Ryan Webb is done for the afternoon. Former Blue Jay Dana Eveland will come in to face Michael Saunders when we come back to St. Pete. Blue Jays are up 5-1 in the 8th. in the first.
They set the tone in the first inning by using the whole field. The at-bat by Josh Donaldson and the at-bat by Edwin Encarnacion, I think, set the tone. Archer got his share of strikeouts, 12 of them. He had 252 last year, 179 of them with his slider. He had a great slider today. But the Blue Jays' approach, I think, against the tough right-hander has been the difference.
Former Blue Jay Dana Evelyn comes into the ball game. Evelyn had 10 games for the Atlanta Braves a year ago. He also pitched in AAA.
Not overpowering, Buck. I don't want to call him a situational left-hander. He can give you multiple innings out of the bullpen. Last man standing for the Tampa Bay Rays out of that bullpen just made the team yesterday.
Michael Saunders takes a breaking ball down and away. Evelyn has parts of 10 seasons in the major leagues. He was with the Blue Jays in the 2010 season, made 9 starts, and then went to Pittsburgh. Evelyn began his career with the Milwaukee Brewers. As we mentioned last year, he pitched in Atlanta. 32 years old, born in Olympia, Washington, and grew up in California. Michael Saunders reached on an error in the 4th, came around to score. Popped up, Kiermaier got a good read on it. 1 down.
I think that's the two down. I think that's the first time that we have called his name, and I think he thought that was 3. Started running in after he caught that ball. With so many strikeouts, the Gold Glover hasn't had many chances this afternoon.
Not many chances at all. He had a double he had to run down off the wall in right center. Russell Martin with an excuse me tapper. Evelyn will flip to first. He comes in and retires the 2 men he is given. We'll go to the bottom of the 8th. Blue Jays have a 5-1 lead on opening day. Now time for a Blue Jays Central update from the Samsung broadcast studio. Here's Jamie Campbell and Greg Zahn.
With the MLB.com at-bat app. Customize at-bat to feature the Blue Jays and stay up to the moment at any moment with scores, news, live game video highlights, and much more. Download MLB.com at-bat, the #1 app for live baseball. And here's how handy it is, Buck. R.A. Dickey just came over to me and asked, hey, was that Angels-Cubs game a regular season game today? You go to the app, you look, nope, it is a spring training game, so there you go. The app came in handy just now.
You can find anything you need to know on that app, and obviously the Pirates beat the Cardinals already, first game of the season. Defensive change for the Blue Jays. Justin Smoke, as he did so often a year ago, comes off the bench to take over here in the 8th inning at first. Marcus Stroman, 81 pitches through 7 innings. He's averaged 11.6 pitches per inning. If you get around 15, you're having a good outing. Another first pitch hit, grounded to short. Tulowitzki right on the money.
10 in a row right now. Look at all the ground ball outs that he is recording with that. It's a good matchup for Marcus because the Rays are now swinging a lot early and they've changed their attitude offensively. They're a little bit more aggressive. That sinker, two-seamer's working for him.
Yeah, it sure is. Logan Morrison, the last time he was up at the plate back in the 5th inning, he and Marcus Stroman appeared to have words. Stroman retired him on one pitch as he hit a fly ball. I'm not sure if it was Morrison who initiated or someone from the bench, but Stroman and Morrison certainly were focused on each other. 0-1. Now 0-2.
Down.
I mean, what an exhibition of pitching we have seen in the second half of this ball game. I mean, it is no contest. The appeal. Las Diaz rings up Logan Morrison, a 3-pitch strikeout. 4 strikeouts now for Stroman. 2 outs here in the 8th.
Well, you talk about right around the 3rd inning, it seemed to get locked in for Marcus Stroman. The two-seamer started diving, the slider started working, and we've seen pinpoint command and control all afternoon long from him. He has kept the ball down. He has gotten his share of ground ball outs. Just 4 strikeouts for Marcus. When he needs it, it's in the tank, I think, if he needs it. But today, he has just used that good sinker. He's used that good slider / cutter. And he has made quality pitches like that one right there.
He hasn't thrown a pitch above the belt all afternoon. We talked about making quality pitches and understanding just how you move the ball around. Another good pitch, another sinker fouled off.
Is there a way that we could see if there were any balls in the middle of the plate? Because I can't recall too many of them right down the heart of the home plate. Everything has been inside corner, outside corner, and down.
Well, and to give you an idea how efficient he has been, he threw 4 pitches in the 5th, 12 in the 6th, and 7 in the 7th. And they're in a swing mode. Now, this is by design, and we talked about the Rays. They switched gears last year, second half of the season. They just weren't hitting the thing. Derek Shelton and Kevin Cash says, man, we got to be more aggressive, and they've carried it into this season. I mean, it looks like an odd approach against Stroman today, but that's what they did in the second half of the season.
And it worked for them. Their runs per game went up to 5.5.
Boy, this is another great lesson for young pitchers. If you throw a lot of strikes, you're going to force the hitters to expand their strike zone.
And it's not just strikes this afternoon from Stroman, it's the quality of the pitches. Look at just 22 balls out of 89 attempts.
There's one above the belt with purpose. Two balls and 2 strikes to Evan Longoria. He's got a couple of hits in 3 trips. He went around. Another strikeout for Stroman. He strikes out a pair in the 8th. Marcus Stroman, 8 completes on opening day. Game. PlayStation provided us with a prediction of who they thought the Blue Jays player of the game would be. The video game version picked Josh Donaldson.
And he was darn close, too. 4 at-bats, a hit. Simulation had him hitting a home run and driving in a run. Josh singled in his first at-bat, and he's going to get another shot at it here in the 9th inning to get that home run and an RBI. But pretty close. Josh Donaldson.
Well, Josh Donaldson got it started. He reached out and got that base hit with 2 strikes. That kind of set the theme of the first inning. Blue Jays put up a 2-spot on 2 runs and 2 walks on 2 hits. So Donaldson contributing to that fast start. Ryan Goins, he's 1 for 3 this afternoon. 9-1-2 for the Blue Jays in the 9th. Dana Evelyn ahead of Ryan Goins 0-2. Top of the 9th, Blue Jays up 5-1. Chris Archer started for Tampa Bay, and he had a rocky first inning. Blue Jays scored 2 runs on 2 hits and 2 walks in the first.
It's another good test right here for Ryan Goins against a lefty. Evelyn likes to sweep that breaking ball. Comes up empty that time.
High breaking ball, and Goins strikes out. That's 15 strikeouts today for Tampa Bay against the Blue Jays.
Slider. That one was elevated. Evelyn got away with one right there. He was looking to go down and away and left it up. 3 punch outs this afternoon for Ryan Goins.
Back to the top of the order. Kevin Pillar's had a 2-hit afternoon. Picked up an RBI with a base hit to right in the 4th. He also doubled in the 2nd. Ari Dickey will start tomorrow, game 2 of this series. He'll be matched up against the left-hander Drew Smiley. Jay Happ on the left. Dickey will start the finale on Wednesday. Ground ball to short. Pillar's retired. 2 down. Marcus Stroman, his pitch count is in great shape. He's only used 34 pitches in the last 4 innings. He is ready to come out for the 9th.
Trying to throw a complete game for the Blue Jays just in case. It looked like Osuna has gotten up and just starting to stretch a little bit down there. The thing about Stroman is they haven't been stressful innings or stressful pitches. How many times have we talked to pitchers about, hey, I could throw 70 pitches, and if they're stressful, I'm gassed.
92 pitches through 8 innings for Marcus Stroman. Donaldson with a 1-1 count. Think he's ready for the 9th? Blue Jays have only had 1 complete game on opening day in their franchise history. Donaldson said, man, that's a wide strike. Are you sure?
They called that a strike?
Yes, they did. 1-2 now. Donaldson hit his first big league home run against Dana Evelyn at Rogers Center. He was a Oakland Athletics, even pitching for the Blue Jays.
Went right down the line. I remember that ball. High arching ball.
They mentioned that complete game that took place April 6th, 1992 in Detroit. Jack Morris in his first start for the Blue Jays. Donaldson strikes out. That ends the inning and sets the stage for Marcus Stroman. How about a first start of the season? Stroman through 8 complete.
Fan 15. Buck?
Thank you very much, Barry Davis. And it has been quite a start to the season for young Marcus Stroman, making his first opening day start. And, Pat, he has been terrific.
He's made it look easy, really, through 8 innings. He's given up 4 hits, 4 scratch hits, an earned run. That was the single by Evan Longoria, 5 strikeouts. But what's been impressive is where he has thrown the ball, sinkers and sliders and cutters down and away. He has induced 13 ground ball outs against the Tampa Bay Rays. And he's looking for a complete game. He's only thrown 92 pitches through 8 innings.
Another first pitch strike. Corey Dickerson, the cleanup hitter. We mentioned Jack Morris threw the only opening day complete game in Blue Jays franchise history. That took place on opening day 1992. Jack Morris threw 144 pitches. Typical Jack Morris.
I was there. Were you there that day? Were you guys doing the game?
He had just come off that great Game 7 of the World Series. Blue Jays signed Jack Morris as a free agent.
And wouldn't you know, he'd go pitch against the Detroit Tigers, his former team.
Jack Morris made 14 opening day starts. His last 2 for the Blue Jays in 92 and 93. 0-2. Defensive swing. Marcus Stroman has only had 1 complete game in his young career. That took place on September 8th, 2014 at Rogers Center against the Chicago Cubs. He threw a 9-inning, 3-hit shutout. Deep drive to right. That's going to leave the yard. Corey Dickerson with a 9th-inning home run.
Marcus was trying that abbreviated windup, tried to quick pitch Dickerson a little bit and left the ball up in the zone. That's what Dickerson was brought over here to do, to hit behind Evan Longoria and supply some power. 2 strikes on Dickerson, and watch the quick pitch, and it's elevated. The only mistake we have seen this afternoon for Marcus Stroman.
Roberto Osuna now gives the thumbs up. He's ready. Should John Gibbons want to make a pitching change here? Osuna, the closer. 5-2 ball game. Desmond Jennings has grounded out the shortstop 3 times this afternoon. There's a base hit. We have seen the Rays come back time and time again against the Blue Jays, and that's going to be it for Marcus Stroman. John Gibbons quickly out of the dugout. He's already made the call to the bullpen.
You see little things from Stroman here in this inning. 2 batters, 2 pitches that were up. Major league hitters are going to hit him, but he did his job. He got his team to the 9th inning with the lead. What an outing for Marcus Stroman.
Marcus Stroman leaves going 8 innings plus 2 batters, and Roberto Osuna coming in for the first to save opportunity of the season.
Official team shop for your Toronto Blue Jays. New 2016 authentic jersey with 40th season sleeve patch is now available. Get yours today at jshop.ca.
Marcus Stroman goes 8 innings plus 2 batters. Gets a pat on the back from the skipper, John Gibbons. He's in line for the win. 5-2 Blue Jays.
You can see he wanted to finish this one. Just made a couple of mistakes. You can see how upset he is that he wanted to get that complete game, but he's going to turn it over to Roberto Osuna. And what a find the Blue Jays had last year. 20 for 23 in saves for Osuna. Trying to get #1 here today. John Gibbons was asked before the game today about his bullpen and how it differs from last year at this time. He said it was so unsettling last year. Remember, Brett Cecil was the closer to start the year, and then Miguel Castro. He said it wasn't until about the middle of the season that everything got settled when Roberto Osuna took over that closer's job.
He didn't really move into the everyday closer's role until June. Here he's quickly ahead of Brad Miller. Well, you look at the work that Osuna did, and then you look at the postseason, the way he was able to close out some of those pressure-packed games, and I think John Gibbons made the right choice. Franklin Morales on the far end of the bench just joined the Blue Jays today. He was picked up from the waiver wire. He was let go by Milwaukee. And he's a left-hander, the second left-hander for the Blue Jays. 0-2 to Miller.
Well, it's a different look now for the Tampa Bay Rays. You have Marcus Stroman dealing with the sinker and the cutter. Now you got raw power you got to deal with Osuna.
That change him into dirt. Roberto made 10 appearances against Tampa Bay. He saved 3 of the 4 save opportunities. Pitched a total of 9 2/3 against Tampa Bay. They hit just 171 against them last year. Fouled straight back. Brad Miller's got a little power. He had 11 home runs last year. And that's a big difference in this lineup this year. There are bats in the lineup that can hit home runs.
Saw that from Dickerson. Everyone in the lineup for the Tampa Bay Rays this afternoon, except Desmond Jennings, reached double digits last year in home runs.
Osuna strikes out Brad Miller. That's the first out of the bottom of the ninth.
Looked like he was going to try and backdoor that breaking ball. It got away from him. Elevated enough, and Miller comes up empty. That's the thing about Osuna. He's not just a guy who will overpower you. He's got a changeup. He can cut the ball. He's a pitcher with exceptional stuff.
Steven Souza Jr. 0 for 4 head-to-head against Roberto Osuna. Blue Jays haven't turned a double play yet. Fouled straight back. Roberto Osuna pitched relief as a 16-year-old in the professional leagues in Mexico. The Blue Jays are the ones that made the transformation to put him into a starter's role. But he likes where he's pitching right now.
Good pitch. I don't think he'll start another game. I mean, the Jays and the coaching staff feel very confident and very good about having this guy finish out ball games.
Remarkably poised for a 21-year-old, and the way he performed down the stretch into the postseason, I think he earned the right to open up this season as the closer.
Yeah, that's what Gibby was saying in spring training that last week when they were trying to decide between he and Drew Storen. They can both capably do it. But he did it for him last year in pressure-packed situations and didn't do anything to lose the job. So he's going to open the season as the closer.
Back-to-back strikeouts since coming into the game.
That's power fastball right by Souza. Set up on the inside portion of the plate. Just power it by him.
Marcus Stroman won all 4 of his starts last season in September. Osuna will pitch all season long as a 21-year-old. That last pitch, 97. And he's pitching.
Yeah.
He understands what he's doing, and he knows he's got multiple weapons.
Well, he's got control, first of all. He's got outstanding stuff, and he's got control. He can throw his fastball where he needs to. He can read bats and use that changeup if he has to. There's a backdoor cutter.
One and two. 2 outs. There goes the runner. Check swing. The appeal denied by Laz Diaz, the third base umpire. Jennings goes to second. It'll probably be defensive indifference for the advancement to second base. Blue Jays were holding their ground defensively. Kevin Kiermaier, he made a big base running mistake in the 4th inning. Batting in the 8th spot, he was at second. He broke for third, and Hank Conger took ball 4. But Russell Martin threw out Kiermaier for the 3rd out of the inning. That was a pivotal point of the ball game at that time. They were going to have the leadoff man hitting with runners at first and second and 2 outs.
And is it a coincidence? Since that base running mistake, they didn't have a base runner until this inning.
That closed out the 4th inning for Marcus Stroman, and in the 5th inning he came out, retired to side in order on 4 pitches. The next inning, the 6th, he retired to side in order on 12 pitches, and it took him just 7 pitches in the 7th. That's going to drop over the head of Tulowitzki. Jennings is in to score. Kevin Kiermaier with a little flare into center picks up the RBI. That'll close out the line on Marcus Stroman. He is charged with 3 runs.
That defensive indifference cost him a run. Jennings got himself into scoring position. Ball wasn't hit very hard by Kiermaier. He just lays the bat on the ball and hits it into no man's land. Into the outfield, makes it 5-3. And that's the thing about the Rays. They're not going to go quietly.
We have seen it all too often here in this ballpark. The Rays storm back late in the game. They're going to concede second base. Kiermaier's run represents the 4th run. So you maintain your defensive positions.
And this is the guy you want right here. He is representing the tying run, so the outfield is going to play a little bit deeper. Justin Smoke at first base is going to guard that line.
Ball gets away from Russell Martin, goes back to the screen as Conger swung at that breaking ball.
Slider in the dirt. Watch Russell go down. Just doesn't get the glove down into the dirt to block it. Don't need to throw a strike here.
The Blue Jays and the Rays have played tight games. Mentioned the Rays won the season series a year ago, 10-9. There's a good block by Martin. That pitch again well out in front of home plate.
Yeah, and that's a reason for that. You don't need to throw a strike. You're going to try to expand right there and see if Hank Conger will swing at it. Good job right there by Russell Martin. Keep that ball in front of him. Save a run. Breaking ball.
I think you got to make this the pitch of consequence right here, 1-2. Don't go any deeper in the count. And he does. Taps it right back to the mound. That's the ball game. Roberto Osuna save number 1. Marcus Stroman. He picks up the win in his first start of the season.
It's everything you can expect on opening day. You want your starter to go deep into the ball game. You want some good at bats. You want a home run. Blue Jays did all of that this afternoon. Troy Tulowitzki with his first home run, and then Osuna finishes it off. Blue Jays are off to a good start here in 2016.
This has always been a tough stop for the Blue Jays, but opening day they come away victorious. Marcus Stroman, boy, did he set the tone. He needed just 34 pitches to retire the Rays in the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th inning. And then he gave up a leadoff home run in the 9th and a single to Desmond Jennings, but he turns it over to a very effective Roberto Osuna, who picks up his first save of the season. The Blue Jays score 5 runs on 7 hits. The Rays 3 runs.